So in the last session, we covered we checked out the packages here. Okay. Now another object of sublog is called as what now? Trigger. Right. So this sublog, how we can use? Okay. The purpose of trigger is what now? Okay. So basically, guys, your triggers. Okay. It is also one of the named block. It is one of the named block. Okay. Right. So it is also one of the named block and similar to procedure. Okay, but similar to procedure, but executed. Okay, but executed implicitly. Implicitly. So here, implicitly means your automatically your system is executed here. Automatically, your system is executed here. Okay, now. So trigger is also one type of named block and similar to procedure. But procedures, what happened, guys, here? Okay, manually, that means after procedure is created, those procedures we are called. Okay, we call those procedures. Okay, but here, okay, views, what we can say, triggers also like a procedures, but these procedures are manually user will not be executed here. Okay, that means we don't have any permissions and we don't have a right to call your trigger by explicitly. Explicitly means a user defined. Okay, so user cannot call your triggers. But procedures already we discussed in the previously. Once we created procedure, the procedures manually only we called. That means user has to call. Okay, now so procedures are not automatically invoked here. Okay, procedures are going to be calling or invoking by user. Okay, so but trigger is not like that. Trigger is going to be similar to procedure, but executed okay implicitly. Okay, implicitly means the system will execute. That means we don't have a any the permission or right to execute your trigger. Okay, no, we don't have any right to execute your trigger because once your trigger object is created, once your trigger object is created, then automatically, then automatically those triggers are okay executed by the system. Okay, without user interaction, it will be executed. Okay, and basically these triggers, trigger objects. Why should we want to create? Why and where the people was created? These trigger objects means they created to control whenever they want to control some DML and the DDL operations. Okay, some DDL and DML operations over database. Okay, so the controlling means like they want to give a restrictions. Okay, here I will say control or restrict. Okay, control or restrict. So control or restrict DML or DDL operations over database. How it was restricted, how it was controlling means based on some business logic. Okay, based on some business okay logics. That means we are writing some logic. Okay, we are writing some logic, and based on the program coding, okay, which logic you written under trigger body. So based on that logic, your operations are automatically be restricted here. Okay, now automatically be restricted. And one more thing is what now? Not only for okay restrictions of your operators, okay, not only for restrictions of your DDL or DML languages, even though by using of trigger, okay, even though by using trigger objects, by using triggers, we can validating, okay, validating data. So we can also validating data. So whenever you want to, okay, validate your data, so there also we can use triggers. Okay, so validations means the data verification, whether data is okay valid or invalid. So that kind of verifications also we can do by using of triggers. Okay, now. So these are what now trigger. And these trigger objects guys here we can create in two levels. Okay, one is we called as a DML triggers. We call first one. Okay, and the second one is called as a DDL triggers. We called DDL triggers. We called okay, and DDL triggers service we can say database triggers we called. Okay, right. So these are the two ways the trigger objects I can create it. Okay, I can create my trigger objects. Okay, so on DML commands, DML triggers means what now? So DML commands, whatever it was there, insertion, updation, deletion. So those are okay, insert, update, delete operations whenever we want to restrict it. Okay, by taking off some business logical conditions. Okay, on particular table. So these are we are using so DML triggers. Okay, no? And DDL triggers means we know like a create, alter, okay, rename, drop. So these kind of commands, whatever it was the DDL. So those operations we are going to be restricted. Okay, okay, on your what now databases. At this moment, we want to create a okay DDL triggers. Okay, so your DML and DDL, these are the two levels or two ways we can create our triggers. One is we can create a trigger object on DML operations, okay, to restrictions purpose and validating of data while insert, update, and deleting level. Okay, and the same to same DDL triggers. These are the restrictions of your DDL operations. Okay, na? So at over databases. Okay, so that is one level we are using DDL triggers. Okay, so in these two triggers, okay, we will be created here, and the first one we will check out what is DML triggers here. So DML triggers simply we called as that here. Okay, so when we created a trigger object, a trigger object, a trigger object to control or restrict, control or restrict. Okay, DML operations, DML operations on a particular table on a particular table here table. So that means we all of why I'm saying here on particular table means your DML operations it was working on table like you just remember. So if I want to insert DML operations are nothing but what now insert, update, delete. Yes or no? So the operations are nothing but insert, update, and delete. Okay now. So that means now tell me guys here we are inserting the data. So where are you inserting the data? Data inserting into table. So we are updating the data. Where are you updated data in the table? And deleting data. From where are you deleting data from the table? So that means inserting data, updating data, deleting data. So these are operations, okay, which we performing on table. So that's why what we said. So when we created a trigger object to control or restrict DML operations on a particular table, here I'm saying table. So that means what you understand, DML triggers are created on table. Understand that? DML triggers are created on table. So not at the database level. So these are created at the table level. We are going to be created now. Okay, now these are table level we are going to be created. So these are the two things we can call as gas. Okay, right. So created trigger object to control restricted DML operations on a particular table. Okay, now. So this is what we called DML triggers. And these triggers, when you want to create it, so we have some syntax here to create your DML trigger objects. Okay, now. So what is my syntax of this? Same as usual. Okay, so create or replace trigger, and I want to send my trigger name. So create trigger name. and later I'm using here after or before, and here I need to pass my operations. Which operations I'm going to create it here? Insert. Okay, my operations are insert or update. Okay, or what next? Delete. Okay, now? So these are the things we are using. Other so that means these are the three operations which will comes under DML, and we know that, and these are the operations I'm going to take. And after taking these operations, okay, insert or update or delete, and these operations you are performing on where, guys? Here you are performing on table. So here I want to give table name. So on which table are you created? Okay, now on which table are you created your trigger object? So the table name should be passive. The table name should be passive. Okay, now right. And after that we have one statement here for each row statement. Okay, and for each row statement where you want to use means I was given some. Okay, this will be using. Okay, this will be used in row level triggers only. It will be used. So what is row level? We will discuss. So it was used in row level triggers. Okay, now otherwise don't use it. Okay, now then after that, as usual, your statement, that means your trigger body is going to be begin, and here I'm going to writing my trigger body or statements. Okay, trigger body or statements, and finally end my trigger. Okay, now right. So this is a simple and general syntax, guys. Here, okay, this is simple and general syntax of your DML triggers. But here the point is what now? Okay, once the trigger object is created, okay, once a trigger object is created on particular table, on particular operations, okay, then what it was happen, guys? Here your object will be created, but that object will not be called. Okay, so that object I didn't, that means the user is not calling here. That means we don't have any kind of the syntax or any kind of chance we should go and call your trigger. Okay, but how it was calling, sir? How these triggers are invoking, sir? How these triggers are executed, sir? Means so whenever we are performing operations, which operations? DML operations. That means your trigger object on which operation are you created. If that operation, if I go to perform on particular table, then immediately your trigger will be invoking. That means triggers are automatically invoked when the trigger related operation, whenever you want to perform, when the trigger related operation whenever you want to perform, then automatically your trigger will be fired. Automatically your trigger will be invoked. Automatically your trigger will be called. Automatically your trigger will be executed. Okay, na? So that means what the point here? Okay, so whenever user perform DML operations or DML operation on a table, then automatically executed automatically executed a trigger. So that means here when user perform DML operation on table, then automatically executed a trigger. Okay, the trigger, okay, automatically executed here. So this is, that's why we have a creation syntax as well. Okay, we have a creation syntax. Okay, now, but we don't have it any calling syntax. We don't have it any calling syntax. We have only creation syntax. Okay, right. So this is what we called as, guys, here trigger. Okay, trigger object, and which object here? DML trigger object when you want to create a. Okay, so object in your database, then you can use a DML trigger syntax. And suppose in place of, okay, if I'm little bit modification, if I'm doing in place of this, if I'm passing here, DDL operations like create command, alter command, okay, drop, rename, truncate. So now in place of this, you can pass, and those are okay working on what now databases. Okay, so in place of table name, here I want to give a database name, okay, or schema name or database name we call. Okay, so that is what it is. I will you will automatically understand here. Okay, right. So now here, so this is syntax here, and in this syntax, can you find out guys here? Here, after and before we have it here. Okay, so what is after and what is before means these are called as a trigger events we called. These are called as what now? Trigger event. So these are called as a trigger event. So these trigger events, okay now. So how it will be working means so just the way of execution, okay, will be different guys here. Way of execution will be different, but final the output, that means when it was producing the result, okay, final result, when it was producing, the result will be come to same. But difference is what now here, observe. Yet after and before, these are the two okay events here. So after means what now? Trigger is going to be executed after DML operation. Okay, so that means first your DML operations are executed. After that, trigger body will be executed. Okay, so trigger is executed. Trigger executed after DML operations. After DML operations. So here, whatever the operation are you given here, on which operation are you created your trigger? Okay, now created trigger. So that operation, okay, after that means first your query executed, later your trigger body will be checked out. Okay, first the query is executed, later trigger will be executed. Okay, now that is after. And the next one is before. Before means what now? Here, trigger executed. Okay, so before DML operation. Before DML operation. So that means in this case, what it was happened right here. In this case, what it was happened, first the trigger is executed and later DML operation. So first your trigger, in this trigger body, whatever the logic you written, so this body is going to be executed first. After executing this, later insert query will be fired. Insert query will be invoking. So this is before DML trigger is executed. After DML trigger is executed. So what it is after before? So just internal execution of your process. That means okay, DML operation after your trigger body is executed. That is called after trigger. And DML operations before your trigger body is executed. That is called before triggers. And but the finally, okay, but it was what was happened. You can go to use any kind of event here, nothing problem. But final output will be same. The final result will be same result will be provided. Okay, but just before and after execution process will be different. But come to final result will come to same result will be providing by after trigger and before trigger also. Okay, right. So that's why in these two keys, that means after or before, in these two, any one you can use as your wish. Okay, you can use after event, you can use. Otherwise, you can use before event. So any one event you can use, nothing problem. So that's why here I'm saying R or R. That means after or before any one event you can use. Okay, no problem. But the finally result will be come to same. Okay, right. So these are what we call as the trigger. Okay. Okay, we can go to create a different trigger. And then later trigger events we call. And later, after this trigger events, okay, next one is what now guys here. The levels of triggers. Okay, that is called as a trigger level. So here, the trigger object in how many levels we can create. Okay, so the trigger object in how many levels we can create. Okay, no? So here observe. So trigger object, the user can create it in two levels. They can create this in two levels. So first level, we can say row level we called, that is called the row level triggers. And second one is called as a statement level trigger. Okay. Second one is called as a statement level trigger. So the trigger objects we can create at two levels. One is a row level and one is called as a statement level. Okay. So what is row level and what is statement level? And what is the differences in between these two? Let me see, guys. The first we will be discussing about row level we are discussing. So come to row level triggers. In this level or in this level of trigger, okay, how your trigger events will be work. Okay, it means here observe. In row level triggers, okay, your trigger body, that means whatever the code or logic are you written under trigger body. Okay, so that logic will be executed for each and every row wise in a table. Okay, so what I'm saying is here, in this level, a trigger body is executed for each row wise. Okay, for each row wise in a table. So here I'm telling you for each row wise. Okay, so that means the trigger logic and the trigger object, whatever the logic we written, okay, that logic will be executing each and every row wise in a table. Okay, so on which conditional basis your operation is going to be performed. Okay, on those conditions, on those condition based, how many rows are there in the table? So that many times your row level trigger body is executed. Okay, now so that what it is, sir. One practical example I will show you. Okay, that end. And one more thing is what now? Whenever we use row level trigger, okay, so we must and should be using for each row statement. Can you see? For each row statement, I can use it in row level triggers. Okay, now? So that means here the point is what now? When we create a row level trigger, we must and should be use it for each row statement. Okay, now? So that point also I'm adding here. Okay, so when we created a row level trigger, then we must use okay for each row statement. For each row statement. Okay, this is compulsory. We should use it guys. Okay. So what is row level? I said a trigger body is executed for each row wise in a table. Okay, so it means what, sir? Let me come up. One small example on this I'm showing now. Okay, let me see, guys. First of all, I'm creating one sample table, and if any table is there in my data with the table activity. Okay, fine. So one table I'm creating that. So create the table number test. Okay, now. So later I will take here some employee name. So varchar 2 of size and salary is number of substance. Okay, later few records I'm inserting into test table. That means some data I'm inserting. So Okay, some name I'm inserting, for example, and the salary was 45,000. Oh, missing comma. Smith and 45,000. The next one is one more employee, Alan, 15,000 rupees. Next, and the next one is Rod, okay, 32,000 rupees. The next one is Miller, 15,000 rupees. Okay, now. So now here, guys, there is a few records I inserted and I created one table and data permanently is stored in this table name test. So in this table, carefully identify, guys, here there are total 4 employees we have. How many employees here? The 4 employees we have: Smith employee, all employee, Word employee, Miller. So in this, the 4 employees, there is 2 employees salaries are 15,000 and 15,000. So that means your 15,000 salary employees. How many people are there, guys? 15,000 employee salaries. How many people are there? Two people are there. Okay, no? So 15,000 employee salaries or 15,000 employee. Okay, how many people? 2 people are there. 2 people are there means here I can set 2 rows. This is row number 1 and this is row number 2. That means 2 rows, 2 row employees. Okay, right. So now you can see on this table, now I'm creating one row level trigger object I'm creating. Then how it was working, observe. So now I'm going to passing as here. So create or replay. Okay, trigger and trigger name T or 1. Okay, now same syntax and follow. So here your wish you can use after or before or any key you can use, no problem. So I'm using after, and which operation this trigger I'm going to create it on which operation. So I'm creating on update operation, and this update operation are you performing on which table? Okay, now my table name is what now? Text. Understanding my point? So I'm creating trigger, create trigger name after or before any key you can use after event or before event anyone, and this trigger object on which command, which DML command we are creating. Okay, so that command name is give it. So now tell me here I'm creating my DML. Okay, command is what now? Update command. Okay, now I'm creating my trigger on which command, guys? Update command. And this update command I'm performing on which table? Test table. Which table? Test table. This is my test table now. So on the test table. So this is the meaning of this. Okay, right. So now later I want to execute. And what I said, if it is a row level trigger, compulsory we should use it for each row. Okay, for each row compulsory we should use it. And for each row statement, what it was going to do means it was internally checking your trigger logic. We said now in row level trigger, what we said, guys, here in this level, a trigger body is executed for each row wise. So each row wise, how it was executed here for each row statement help. So for each row statement help, it was each row will be executed. That means each row will be checking. Okay, right. Now let me come out, guys, here. So that's why I'm using for each row. After that, you need to go for begin statement. And here, a smaller statement I'm writing, dbms underscore output dot put underscore line. Okay, some statement. So I'm stating, I'm passing here. I am role level. Okay, I am role. Any statement, just our printing purpose. Just our printing purpose I'm giving here. I'm role level. Okay, and later end this and execute. So this trigger is already existing. Okay, now my trigger is created. So trigger object TR1 successfully created. Okay, after created, now let me carefully observe. Okay, the very interesting point here. So now this trigger we created on which command we said update command on which table test table. Okay, now right. So now let me find. So on which command are you created your trigger? Okay, on which command are you created your trigger? Okay, now so that particular command only we need to use. Okay, now so why sir means if this trigger want to execute. Okay, now if this trigger want to execute, then the trigger are you created on which command, that command only we need to use. So then only your trigger object will be firing. Then only your trigger object will be firing. Otherwise, not firing. Suppose here, tell me guys here, we are created trigger object on which command? Update command. Okay, now we are created trigger object on which command? Update command. But if I'm going to performing insert operation, then what happened? Your trigger is executed or not executed? What is your guessing? Your trigger is executed or not executed? That means your trigger is a calling or trigger is not called. Trigger is not called. Why trigger is not called means your trigger object is created on update command. Okay, and are you using which command? Are you performing which command? Insert command. So update command, insert command, both are not same, different commands. So that's why when you do insert, when you perform insert operation on test table, then your trigger, this whatever the trigger is there, this trigger will be not calling. The trigger will be not firing. The trigger will be not invoked here. Okay, because of reason, this trigger object I'm creating on which command? Update command. Okay, now right. For example, if I'm going to perform here delete operation, for example, perform if I perform delete operation, now tell me your trigger is firing, your trigger is invoking here. No, here also trigger is not invoked here. So why sir trigger is not invoked means my trigger was created on update command and you are performing delete operation. Then how it is possible? My trigger is an update command and you are doing your delete operation. So that's why it is impossible to call or invoke. Okay, na? Right. So that's why the point is what now, whenever you want to invoke your trigger or execute your trigger or call your trigger, that trigger object is created on which command. So that command only we need to perform. Okay, now that command only we need to perform. Then only that related trigger object will be fired. Okay. So now which command here? Update command. Now we can say update. So update on which table? Here table also which table? Text table. Okay, now text set. Suppose guys here observe. Salary is equal to 12,000, where salary is equal to 15,000. So in this operation, what I'm doing here, I'm going to updating employee salary 15,000 is there now. So 15,000 employee salary, I'm updating with the 12,000. I'm updating with the 12,000. Okay. Now come to tell me your table 15,000 employees are, how many employees are there whose salary was 15,000 here in my table? How many employees are there whose salary is 15,000? Two employees. Two employees means here, can I say two rows? Can I say? Yes, we can say. So it means that once I will execute this command, okay, once I will execute this command, so by using of this command, how many rows are affected? How many rows are affected means there are two rows are affected because there is a two employees whose salary was 15,000. So that's why two rows are affected here. Okay, right. Two rows are affected. So now let me see. I'm going to execute it. But carefully observe by using or with the help of this query. Okay, with the help of this query, there are two rows are affected in my table. Okay, now then in your trigger body, whatever the statement you written in your trigger body, whatever the statement you written, what is my statement? I am row level. What is my statement? I am row level. So this I am row level, how many times printed? You can see. Yes, I executed this tree and I am row level statement. Tell me guys, how many times printed? How many times printed your trigger body under body, whatever the statement you written under body, that statement how many times printed? Here, how many times printed your statement? Yes, two times printed. So I am row level, two times printed. And here below, it is also showing two rows are updated. The below, it was showing what now? Two rows are updated. Okay, now my point understanding now? Yes. So that means now tell me here how many rows are affected in your table by a command, by a query. So that many times your trigger body is executed. That many times your trigger body is executed. Okay. So that means here there are 10 rows are updated. Suppose in your table, there are 10 rows are updated. So 10 rows are updated means your trigger body is also executed how many times guys here? Come on, what is your guessing? For example, in my table, 10 rows are updated. Okay, then row level trigger object executed how many times? Yes. How many times executed? Come on. How many times executed? Ah, yes. So 10 rows are affected means 10 times are executed. Okay, now suppose in your table, suppose 10 rows are updated means your trigger object is executed 10 times. Okay, now right. So that means what you understand here, each row wise your trigger is executed. So that statement is satisfied now. So what I said in this level, a trigger body is executed for each row wise in a table. Okay, na? So how many rows are affected? Either one row na, two row na, five rows na, 10 rows na, 100 rows na. So how many rows are affected? Okay, so that many times your row level trigger body is executed. Understand na? So this is practically we proved here. So here in my table, there is a 15,000 employees. There are two employees are there, all employee and Miller employee. So that means two rows are there. So when I'm going to executing this, okay, this command, what happened? This command is executed. There are two rows are updated. Can you see two rows are updated? Can you see 2 rows are updated? So 2 rows are updated means I am a row level statement. How many times printed? 2 times printed. How many times printed? 2 times printed. So this is row level trigger. So the row level trigger, what it will do guys here? Okay, each and every row wise, your trigger logic or your trigger body will be checked and execute. Okay, now as per your given conditions. And finally, when you want to call and see your table, select the start from the test table that you see. So all employee 12,000 successfully updated and Miller employee 12,000 successfully updated. So this is statement level trigger example, guys. This is statement level trigger example. Okay, na? Right. And what about second one is called as the row level trigger. Sorry, statement level trigger. So statement level trigger, what it was telling us in this. Okay, statement level triggers. So these triggers, what it was telling us. So in this level, guys, here, okay, in this level, trigger body is executing, trigger body is executing only, okay, executing only one time. Executed only one time for DML operation, for any DML operation. Okay, so this is quite opposite. Okay, now it is a quite opposite. And here, simply what it was saying, guys, here, okay, here your trigger object is okay created. Okay, so your trigger body is going to be executing only one time. See, it's only one time. So that means in your table, how many rows are affected? That is none of the matter. Either one row is affected, 5 rows are affected, 2 rows are affected, 100 rows are affected. That was none of the matter. So your statement level trigger will executing only one time. Okay, for any number of rows. For any number of rows, your statement level trigger is executing only one time. Okay, now? So now here also, let you see some practical here. Okay, one practical example on this also for your understanding. Let me come out, guys. So this is present my table after updation. Okay, this is my present table. Okay, now I'm going to create it here. Statement level trigger. Okay, same I have to take here. So create or replace. Okay, so trigger TR1. Okay, create or replace trigger name. And here after or before, now save my update on the same table, test table. But here in this, okay, we don't want any special statements or we don't want to use here. Okay. Okay, now? Right. So now we can see I'm creating here trigger and on same update operation on same table. Okay, now? So here directly you can go to use your begin statement. And now here I'm writing my statement. I need to print a small statement. Okay. What I want to say now, I am statement level. I am statement level. Okay. Simple statement I'm passing. Okay, now? Okay, right. Now here what happened, you can see carefully. So in this case, in your trigger body, same one print statement I want to print. Okay, right. And after that, I need to end. So carefully observe. So trigger successfully created, guys. Here. Okay. So now, and your table present, your table is this one. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to update it. So update. My table name is what now? Test set. Salary is equals to. Suppose I will go for 18,000 rupees, for example. So where salary is equals to 18,000 rupees. Sorry, salary is equals to 12,000 rupees. So now tell me, guys, here Yeah, 12,000 people in my table. How many people are there? 12,000 salary people. Come on. How many rows are there? 12,000 people. Yes, it is also showing what now here. Okay, so two rows only. Okay, we have it. So 12,000 people. How many rows here? Two rows. That means two people are there. Now I'm going to updating this for you. What it was happening, you can see. I updated. How many rows are updated here? Two rows are updated. So two rows are updated successfully as per this condition. Fine. But guys, tell me your trigger body, how many times printed? Observe your trigger body, how many times printed? Come on, guys. How many times printed your trigger body? Okay, right. So only one time it was going to be executed. Okay, only one time. But your two rows are affected. Okay, now two rows are affected. But my trigger body under body, whatever the statement I was written, the statement was executing only one time. So it means that what you understand here, statement level triggers. So the statement will be confirmed now. So what is the statement in this level? In this level, a trigger body in this level, a trigger body, okay, is executing only one time for DML operation. Okay, either insert operation, update operation, or delete operation. Okay, how many rows are affected? Okay, it is none of the matter, but your trigger body is executed only one time. So this is what we called as guys here statement level triggers. Okay, na? So this example is going to take under statement level trigger. Okay, na? So these are the two levels. Okay, that means at two levels we can create our trigger. One is a row level and one is a state. Okay, na? Right. And later, okay, later we will go for the next level is how the statement level triggers and row level triggers I can use for my programs. Okay, in my program, that means I'm writing some business logical conditions. Okay, in those conditions, how these two levels of triggers I'm using. Okay, na? So those are examples we will see in tomorrow's session, guys. Here. And I already set you end of this weekend. That means this weekend your batch is also completed. Okay, so Saturday is your last class of this course. Okay, na? Right, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.